And then I'm going to change the way things have been done in previous sessions. I'm going to give each panel member 10 minutes. So they would give us their presentation, and in that 10 minutes, we would also include questions and answers. And my appeal to you is to keep your questions short. I don't know whether it's a Unisa tendency. I noticed that questions are prolonged with an epilogue and prologue and all kind of things. So just try to keep your questions short and simple and straight to the point. We are dealing with catalytic niche area 7, and I think it's a good number. 7 is supposed to be a perfect number. We have 7 days in a week, and almost all religions and cultures, I think there's something associated with the number 7. Let me introduce the panel members to you briefly. I think I made an error by asking the panel members to send me a short biography. If I had to read the biography of each one of them, unfortunately, our 1 hour would be finished. So you would introduce yourself just with a sentence or so, very briefly. Maybe, I think there was a talk that this kind of symposium is going to be held yearly in future. So in future, maybe we'll have to consider time and introduce you the way that you should be introduced. In order of speaking turns, I want to introduce Professor Cornelius Samakalu from the Vaal University of Technology. And believe it or not, he did his master's degree through Unisa. He just told me this morning that the last time he came here was 2010 when he graduated. So he has done extremely well. As a PhD student, I was his PhD supervisor, and you know there is a story that you must always take care of your PhD students, and yeah, I am giving him this opportunity. He's from the Vaal University of Technology. Number 2 is Prof. Maslako, Prof. Linky, commonly known as Prof. Linky. She's the research team manager of animal breeding and genetics. And she was introduced to me by my good colleague there, Dr. Professor John Silo. Welcome, sir. I also see members of my department in the audience. Thank you for your support this afternoon. Number 3 will be an external person. His presentation will be done virtually. He's Mr. Duduzi Mdluli. He's the group executive chairman of a mine, and we know that mines do cause a lot of problems, although we get a lot of money from the mines. So I think he's going to address that issue. The rest are my colleagues from Unisa. Number 4, Prof. Titus Sagati, distinguished professor at Unisa. Number 5 on the panel is a PhD candidate, Mr. Sibosiso. And last but not least is our distinguished professor, Prof. Jasper Rees. I think he's well known in the research community. So without further ado, I think I've covered most of the points. Our catalytic niche area is such a broad field. Therefore, you will notice that the panel members also are quite broad in their expertise. I try to bring in different expertise into this catalytic niche area. So let me remind you that there is a little gift from Unisa for the best question asked this afternoon. So keep that in mind when you ask your question. And remember what I told you about your questions being short and crisp. I think I'm going to use that as a category for awarding the prize. So our first speaker this afternoon is Dr. Cornelius Samakalu.
Um, Good afternoon, everybody. And it's really nice being here again on this side of the room. So today I want to talk about empowering health sovereignty in Africa and critically looking at the role of local vaccine production and innovative technologies such as the ones that I'm developing can play such a role. So I'm going to take you back. You know, growing up, life was quite simple. I'm sure for most of us, it might have been that way. But challenges always existed at that during that time, although we didn't fully understand these challenges at this point in time. I remember my days when I was going to a boarding school. There are times when the school had to shut down because there was diarrhea issues, eye sicknesses, and all of that. But being a young person, that was quite exciting because that was a chance for your parents to come and take you out of your boarding school, and then you go back home. But although there was that excitement, underneath the reality, there was that thing, the reason to why you are sent home. And while no one died, the fear of the uncertainty were always constant companions for my principal. Oh, sorry. So if you own a Mazda, number plate LF10WC GP, your windows are open. So I think that's a risk. You would be advised to please go close them. It's a Mazda LF10WC GP. Okay. Okay, I don't see any. Yeah, going back to that time when we had left school because of an outbreak. But the one thing, though, is that the headmaster at the school, I'm sure his heart was like, at least nobody died. Well, on the other hand, my grandfather, he admired farms, he admired animals. But the thing was that his animals did not multiply. At least I didn't see it that way. As a, as a child, I watched him with admiration, unaware of the full extent of his struggles. He was a strong man, deeply connected to the land. But looking back, I now see the frustration in his eyes as his animals failed to grow and resemble those in the cowboy movies that he loved so much. Many years later, I became a scientist, an inquisitive and curious one, so I'm told. But thanks to the guidance of my mentors, one of them being here, I began to understand immunity from an applied angle, which fueled my passion for developing solutions in that area. Now that I think about it, my drive to develop vaccines was deeply rooted in those early experiences where I witnessed firsthand how diseases could silently rob a community of its potential. I often think back to those moments with my grandfather. I remember asking him one day, Grandpa, why don't the animals grow? He sighed, deeply, his eyes reflecting a quiet frustration. He said, it's the sicknesses. We cannot control them. Without help, we are at the mercy of nature. Years later in the lab, I found myself echoing the same words as I spoke to my colleague Zodo. I was like, but Zodo, why is it so hard to get the tools we need? We know what to do, but everything feels out of reach. So this scenario from my village, the common diseases we faced, and the lack of effective treatments or vaccines meant that even minor illnesses could disrupt our lives. My grandfather's animals suffered from diseases we could not prevent, limiting his ability to prosper. To this day, especially in Africa, these challenges persist where communities continue to be vulnerable due to limited access to vaccines and tools to actually develop these vaccines. So as a scientist in Africa, I am faced with the high costs and complexity in terms of intellectual property barriers that keep life-saving vaccines technologies out of reach, particularly for communities like the one I come from. So I'm sure most of us here today continue to feel that deep frustration and helplessness as we watch our communities struggle with preventable diseases. The feeling stayed with me, driving my determination in my role as a scientist. I could not forget the fear in the eyes of my headmaster when he saw the outbreak just go through the school. My grandfather, when he looked at his animals that failed to multiply, and I'm sure even for my parents, I'm sure they, they were quite worried. But as an adult, those memories fuel my resolve to push forward, even when the barriers are insurmountable. So I've taken all this frustration and I have channeled it into creating technologies that would enable the creation of vaccines and enable equitable access to such life-saving tools. And one of the systems that we've developed is PIT, which is short for photonics inactivation technology, where we simply use light to inactivate organisms, thus creating vaccines. So our goal at this point in time is to extend this innovation to scientists at universities, research councils, to co-create with us. There's so many diseases out there that would benefit from a solution such as this. And I think it's high time that we take the narrative we take charge of this narrative and not expect all the time to be saved by some other good-willing country. Yes, that's good, but we need to develop something locally, and we have the means to do that. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Kano. Uh, I think if you didn't get the PIT stands for Photonics Inactivation Technology. So it's using light to inactivate pathogens and then create a vaccine from that. So it's time for one or two questions from the floor. Yes, sir. Do we have the microphone? Another question there. I think we'll just restrict it to two questions.
Thank you, Dr. Semakal. Um, this is Adeyo. That name might ring some bells, but I think we'll have the opportunity to also chat once again, even after now. The fears that we have as you grow up, just like you said, sir. One of my fear, once again, is within this technology, who approves this? Are we actually at the stage where we can say that we have mastered this act and we have every tool that we need? Or even after this time, we still need approval for this technology. So this is what I'm actually willing to ask. And how do we move forward from here if we are not at that stage in Africa yet. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll take the second question and then Kano can answer the questions.
Thank you for the excellent presentation and the presentation of this case study. I heard the professor mentioning about scarcity of funds as obstacle to the spread of innovation. And I wanted to advise, does this innovation actually has like a legal counsel, intellectual property counsel, in order to enhance a return on investment? Did you acquire a patent over the innovation? This is number one. Number two, is there, I assume it is a Unisa invention. Do you partner with, for example, the College of Law to get the tips on the application process for a patent? Because it is a long-run innovation and there is a need for return on investment. So to what extent do you associate your research with legal counselor who can accompany in the journey and so that you get the right patent on it? And the second thing is innovation. There is a, I don't know if there is associated genetic resource in this particular invention. Do you use any genetic resource? Because we now have a treaty at the international level under the World Intellectual Property Organization, and there has to be a prior informed consent from local communities in case you acquire any genetic resource to sustain your invention. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll ask Kano, can you answer those two questions?
Thank you very much for those questions. I think they're quite excellent. The good thing about regulation, in terms of getting systems online, that's been laid out by some organizations. One of them being the WUHA. It's got a framework within which this can be applied. But on the other hand, there's also other organizations that are linked to the Department of Health that have got frameworks within which such innovations can be regulated. The question, though, and I think maybe we meet each other here, is how have our scientists been trained? Have we been trained to question some of these regulations that kind of apply at an international level and see how they can be customized to really meet our demands? And how can we play a part in that regard? So from an inventor's perspective, what we've done, it's difficult to commercialize in biotechnology or to do anything in biotechnology. And thankfully, we've been able to do it as a startup on our own. And we've really had to work with institutions that had the capabilities to kind of navigate those spaces. And working with them, we find that there's a lot of talent that if you actually give them platforms, they can create a lot of interesting things. And the pathway to getting those interesting things into the markets that they are needed, the pathway is there, but it needs someone who's quite experienced to kind of hold your hand to get you through that path. And there is a few people here and there that are able to do that. So I hope that kind of answers the question. Then in regard of IP, with PIT is wholly owned by Iraka Biotech. So Iraka Biotech is not associated with Unisa.
I think I'm going to move on to the next speaker because our time was even cut short further by 15 minutes, and we still have quite a few speakers to go. Thank you very much for that opportunity, Kano. Uh, I'm going to call on the next speaker, Prof. Linky.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Um, being the only lady on the hot seat, I wish to wish you a belated Women's Day and a happy Women's Month. So I'll be talking about the two areas that would open opportunities for us to already collaborate, where we are already collaborating and open.
Outlines therefore our path forward in this critical phase. Now, the paradigm shifts to conserving our natural habits. As we all know that South Africa has hundreds of tailings, some which are active and others inactive. And I believe we understand that tailings causes very hazards to any living organism. And also, we should never forget the negative effects through pollution, through water contamination, and also most of the tailing dams, because during the olden ways, they used to discard the residue near perennial streams with an intention for them to be washed away over time. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, you know? So as a caring and patriotic mining house, we took a resolution, therefore, to say, having the decommissioned underground mine, which is 60 hectares of land, instead of starting there, let us first fix the broken windows first and rehabilitate all the sites and creating a footprint from Barberton. That is when we approached the likes of Mintech, that we form synergies together. Now, that has made us to develop a foreground IP. That IP is called EqualityM. EqualityM, I would say it's a process. In actual fact, the Equality process is a molar version of chlorinization, and it uses a mixture of pool acid, dilute hydrochloric acid, bleach, your sodium hypochlorite, and sodium matrate bisulfite, and also caustic. Now, with these chemicals, we condition with our hypochloric. From then, we leach with our hydrochloric, and we precipitate both AU and a base metal. So in our base metal precipitation, we use caustic. All our chemicals that are used there are environmentally friendly, okay? Now, we should bear in mind that this program, our idea or objective, in fact, it is to rehabilitate all the tailing dams that are discarded globally to retain them to its original pristinity. Our new innovation or our new technology, what it does, we detox the tails during the conditioning phase and the leaching phase. Now, we leave the tail as an LC3 construction material that you can use for construction material and build interlocking bricks and stock bricks, and therefore investing back to the infrastructure. Unlike currently, we understand that the world is trying by all means to manage tailing facilities. But the methodologies that are used still they are not solving the problem because they are only managing. Our new innovation, what it does, like I was explaining, we are ending the tailing dams because after we have processed, and remember, out of all the other methodologies that are here in the market, like your CIL, your CP, mercury as well, mainly artisanal miners, they use mercury. In terms of recovery, mercury recovers up to 45%, and cyanide up to what, 89%, and we recover 99.9%. At the same time, we detox those tailings. That is the beauty about this new baby. Sorry, let me. We are very proud about this beautiful innovation. Now, what we have done, we have done a pilot project that lasted for 9 months with Mintech SA at our property, the Luati Gold. Luati means knowledge, by the way. It started from the 14th of January up to the 14th of September, 2023. So now we are in a commercial, in fact, we are gearing for commercialization. Hence, we seek partners that we can collaborate with in order for us to reach our goal, which is to commercialize this technology. So how we intend to put ourselves into the market? We just want, we do market analysis, feasibility study, supply chain and logistics, operational infrastructure, risk management and contingency plan, well, monitoring and continuous improvements, sustainability and CSR initiatives using our foundation in Lenhle. So by this, I will conclude by saying that, or reminding us that the leakage of mining waste, with its proximity to humans and their livelihood, the most vexatious, equally, is the catalytic solution that eliminates this environmental cancer, but also completely converts this menace to economic use. We have concluded the pilot run and are now embarking, like I said, on the commercialization. So yeah, without saying much and understanding that we run short or out of time, I think I'm gonna end my presentation here. And besides that, I'm putting an emphasis and a challenge to Unisa to consider also working with us. Now, citing from the latest document that was presented, our in fact document that was presented in America on the IMWA, there were findings that in the tails, like the old tails, cyanide is still active, and in our water courses, the streams that are running, tests were done, samples were taken and tests were done, and we could tell that cyanide is still there. Now, we are putting a challenge to UNISA now to say, let us form a partnership because we want to understand the repercussions. If someone drinks water that is contaminated with cyanide, what happens? Why I'm raising this? Yesterday, we received statistics from on the 8th of August to the 13th, where 590 patients were admitted in both private and general hospital. They had diarrhea. We suspect, or it is suspected, that it's because of our water reservoir. Now, our water reservoir is just adjacent to one of a discarded tailing dam. Hence, we need UNISA to assist with research and outcomes. What happens when someone drinks? And also, remember, some tailings are within nature reserves. And environmental laws, they don't allow us to work there because it's an environmental area. But there are animals that are feeding through browsing and grousing in the very same trees that are growing on top of the tails. Hence, we need UNISA to assist with the study on what happens to those birds and animals that are feeding there. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Sir, in view of time, I think we are going to move to the next speaker. And I think the next speaker kind of works with him. Prof. Titus.
Thank you, Professor Pillay, and good afternoon. From our side here at UNISA, alongside what is termed as biotechnological sciences, we have work that is related, that is tied to that niche area, related to bioprocesses and also bioengineering, and as well as beneficiation of the processes and the products that are all making use of biotechnologies. Now, we are all very much aware that the biotechnology is a huge world. It's a galaxy of its own. Inside you'll have like there's likes of solar systems, you have planets, you have so many stars there. The sun is one of the stars. So we are part of that galaxies. Now, we work mostly the biotechnologies that we're working on from at least from the side that I can talk about from the College of Science, Engineering and Technology is mainly directed towards the environmental remediation. Now, the environment, the air, the water, the soil, let me call that the soil, all those we have technologies that are aiming at ensuring that where we live is safe, is clean, so that we may realize some of us have dreams to live to above 100. But if the environment is contaminated, we'll trim our years that we want to live. Now, the environment that I want to mention here that is well known to be contaminated is what Honorable Mdudu Mdluli was sharing with us. Mining activities are very lucrative kind of business. And whenever we hear that, no, in our country, we have realized that we have these resources buried under the ground, we are all happy. At the moment, we have some good news that there's a belt that has tons and tons of coal, very high quality coal. Now, the activities of mining also brings about pollution and contamination of the environment, the air, the water, the soil. Now, what do? Should we stop mining? No. So we'll certainly go for that resource. It means a lot in terms of employment, in terms of economic benefit. So one thing that is also true is reality of that business is what Honorable Mdu was talking about, pollution and contamination of the environment, where we wanted to plant our crops. Our colleagues here were talking about agriculture and everything. That becomes compromised because of mining activities, of which we cannot say we are going to stop mining because we'll grow crops that will accumulate all those toxic ions. So what we do, we develop technologies based on biotechnology principles that will ensure that we will mine and then we will get our environment cleaned. Now, what do we do there? We develop, first of all, the methods involving various scientific principles to evaluate what has gone to the soil, what has gone to the environment from our mining activities, I just single out the mining activities, not to offend anybody. Mining activities, mining business is very good and personal. We encourage to continue. Why? Because we have the means to sort out whatever problems that will come out of the mining activities. We develop analytical methods to be able to see what wrong things are going to our environment, and after knowing them, um, quantifying them, we come now with appropriate strategies using biotechnological principles to clean the environment, the air, the water, the soil. Now, when we do all these strategies, we are aiming to reclaim, to revitalize the pieces of land, our water bodies, our air, to revitalize, to make them also live. When they are live, when they are alive, we are also alive. And colleagues, many times, many people blame, especially us at the universities, that we conduct research just to please ourselves. I want to do this because I want to do that. But here at the College of Science, Engineering, and Technology, we do things that speak to the reality, things that are also having economic value. Things are also meant to make lives better, to make industries now produce at a confidence that they are not facing the possibility of getting penalties, because if you throw dangerous things in the environment, the government will come. How do you know? They pay fines. And industries like mining, they are always very, very conservative, very, very keen in making profit. You want to inject one, but you want to reap 1,000. That is the mining industry. So the technologies that we are developing up to scratch that the industry will certainly say yes to our technologies. Honorable Mdu was speaking about some of the technologies that are making good things for them. Now, with the remediation and the revitalization, we are aiming at ensuring that the areas that are contaminated, they are back, suitable for human settlement, suitable for agriculture, suitable for industrial and other economic activities, and suitable to generate more job opportunities, to create employment. If we come with a technology, certainly that technology will be entertained by the industry, by the mining industry, by the government, by the communities. That will require people to go and man the technology there. That is job creation and employment creation also. And also, they are meant to attract other stakeholders to come into play. It's not just technologies who put their systems, engineering systems there. That is one thing. But we need other stakeholders. We need the legal experts there. Whenever there is something that we need, people who are in the business sector, commercialization and whatever, we need that one. We need others, like Honorable Drew was saying, that there are people who get sick and they suspect that it's because the water has been contaminated by whatever comes from the mining process. We need people who are dealing with epidemiology. So it's a group of us coming together, making sure that at least everybody is busy. And as I was saying, that no one just does things for pleasing themselves. That luxury is too expensive to be entertained by anybody. Everybody wants to do something that will make a difference, that will impact. So that's what we are doing, and we are collaborating with stakeholders like the industry, so that whatever we are doing is not just to please ourselves so that we have good feelings. No. We make sure that we are doing these things is meant there. Now, what Honorable Mdu was talking about, we are developing technology. We have developed technologies that are suitable for them. And in terms of other technologies, modern technologies, we incorporate modern technologies, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data sciences, to ensure that we are making the processes and the engineering systems user-friendly and able. You don't need to be visiting sites. You are just there with your cell phone. You see what is going on there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. I'm sorry to get up and chase you away from here. I'm sure all of us want to hear more and more of what you have to tell us. I promised the next session to give me or give me at least 10 minutes more. So next two speakers, please, 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes. Sipho, you want to go next?
Good afternoon, colleagues. I must say big ups to Prof. Pillay for inviting the only student in these panels. So thank you. And speaking of being a student, I feel like, when you are working in a group and you're like that last member that comes in that doesn't know much, that's how I feel right now. But hopefully I give you some aspects of what I am currently doing under the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences. So basically what I'm doing there in my PhD under the leadership of Professor Ntwasa, we are currently interested in the development of drugs for cancer. So as you may know, cancer is increasing globally. Its incidence as well as mortality is increasing globally. So one of the strategies of addressing that is to create new therapeutics to address that increasing incident and mortalities. So as you may know that some of the common ways of treating cancer in South Africa and low middle income countries include surgery. And surgery has a risk because after they cut off the cancer, it can easily come back. So that's a problem. And other therapeutics that are used in South Africa is radiation and chemotherapy. And we know that radiation and chemotherapy have horrible side effects, and some of them affect normal cells. So the approach that we are using in our lab is to use targeted therapies. So there now we are looking at genes and proteins that are mutated that actually result in the cancer. So in a way we design drugs that specifically target those proteins using the targeted approach. Targeted therapies. So there now we are looking at genes and proteins that are mutated that actually result in the cancer. So in a way, we design drugs that specifically target those proteins for a targeted approach. So one of the other mechanisms that we are employing is repurposing. So repurposing really is all about reusing the current drugs that we have in the market and repurposing them for cancer. A classic example is aspirin. So aspirin, which is used for your headache, has been shown to have some anti-cancer activities. So that is also part of our research that we do. So we do this using various techniques, starting with computational biology, where we look at how the actual drug can bind to the protein. And from there, then we test that in the lab using cell lines. So we're looking to see how effective is that drug against the growth of the cancer. Once we have those results, which is something that I'm happy to share with you, that now we have one of our drugs in preclinical studies. So we have validated it in the lab, and it's now in animal studies, and we hope that it will go on to human studies, and it would be the first drug to come out of Africa. So yeah, that's the gist of what I am doing. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, Sipho. You will see that I didn't make any mistake or error by inviting Sipho to the platform. In view of time, we are not going to take any questions. I'm going to go to our final speaker, Prof. Jasper.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, colleagues. I realize I stand not just between you and lunch, but between you and the next session and then lunch. So yesterday I won a prize for saying the word agrivoltaics. So I'm inclined to say agrivoltaics, and then I'm done. except that Michael must then give me a prize. And I really don't have a lot to say because I think we've covered lots of things. We've covered different aspects of the biotechnology, natural sciences, biotechnology, catalytic niche area. And so I'd like to speak to a few issues that I think are really critical to that catalytic niche area, rather than talking about things that I have a history of doing, like sequencing DNA, and sequencing more DNA, and sequencing even more DNA. So there are going to be a number of things which drive this catalytic niche area, and many of them are going to be driven by what we will call big data. So big data is going to be, obviously, lots and lots and lots of DNA sequencing, from which there'll be lots and lots and lots of protein data, from which there'll be lots and lots of metabolomic data. There'll be a lot of genetics that is driven by DNA sequencing and genomics. And it will apply to cattle, it'll apply to sheep and goats and chickens and fish and crops, and you name it. If it grows, it's got DNA. If it's got DNA, we will be able to use that data. And one of the programs that the catalytic niche area will drive is the Africa Biogenomes Project, the Africa BP. It is a continental level project in which Unisa, under Professor Mapoli, has been taking the lead role. And it is a project to sequence, wait for it, the reference genomes of every plant and animal species in Africa, which is estimated to be about 105,000 different species, wait for that, or 50,000 of which are insects. So anybody who wants to go out and harvest and sample 50,000 different insects, you're welcome. But initially, the big focus is on indigenous livestock and indigenous crops of economic value. And the first genomes of those are being generated at the moment. I think here I would say that there's Ngunis and there's Afrikaners and there's Drakenburgers and there's whatever. And a couple of weeks ago, I got the data for Venda chicken. I don't know what's different about Venda chickens compared with Zulu chickens, but I have a genome sequence, and it took me 4 days to build. And so one of the things that's really critical is the enormous rate of increase in the technologies that we're using. So I've been sequencing DNA for more than 40 years. I know I don't look like I'm ancient, but I've been sequencing DNA for more than 40 years, and I went to a very advanced primary school, you see, so we did lots of exciting things in that era that you couldn't do today. However, the reality is that the human genome, when it was published in 2001, people said it cost $3 billion. And it took hundreds of scientists and enormous resources. The Venda chicken took us about 4 days on a DNA sequencer, and it took me about 4 days on a computer. And it's a reference genome that is better than most of the reference genomes for chicken that are in the databases. So this enormous rate of improvement in technology doesn't just apply to DNA sequencing, it applies to proteomics, it applies to phenotyping, whether it be plants or animals, whether it's crops or livestock. It applies to remote sensing and imaging technologies. People talk about drones, but the drone is just a little thing that flies. What's important is the camera under the drone that takes the pictures that give us the data to be able to do the science. And this incredible rate of change in our data production rates, which is paralleled by computing power and computing storage, means that we are able to do in the future the sort of work we could only conceive of in our wildest dreams about 10 years ago. And in 10 years' time, I cannot imagine what we'll be able to do. We will sequence the genome of the Venda chicken, not one, but all of them. 50,000 Venda chickens in our chicken house will all be sequenced on a little machine, and it will all be quantum computed. And I don't know what we'll do with that knowledge, but whatever we do with it, it's going to be a huge amount of fun. So with the catalytic niche area, what I think my take-home message to all of you is the amount of data we will generate and process in the future is going to be absolutely phenomenal. It's going to be beyond anything we understand, and those are the sorts of things we have to do and plan to do as we do the science that's coming next. The previous 40 years of my experience just sets the foundation. It sets the scene for what we're going to be able to do, not in the next 40 years, but in the next 4 years. And I think it's an enormously exciting space to be in. And I hope that those of you who are in the catalytic niche area are going to have as much fun in your next 40 years as I've had in my last 40 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jasper. I think if given the opportunity, Jasper will keep us entertained for the whole afternoon as well. Since it's Women's Month, I'm going to take the liberty of offering this gift to ma'am. You asked the first question, yes? Okay, folks, this brings us to the end of this session. I want to thank all of you once again for attending this session and for the experience that you had from the speakers. Thank you.
there is maybe a change of perspective on what are the baselines that we use when we measure the kind of health progress that we want to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you. Good day, colleagues.
Yes.
My contribution to this conversation in regarding problems facing the healthcare sector at the moment, I would first start with a long-standing issue pertaining to shortage of staff, which then alludes to leaving nurses or clinicians to see more patients than they would normally do, which would then promote or lead to burnout. Second to that, currently the economy is not doing well. Then one would then also reflect or have a look on matters pertaining to increase in health costs, which then affect the availability of necessary healthcare services needed by an individual or even a community. Second to that, we also look at access and equality. Then we pertain at health disparities to say that some individuals or some marginalized communities or individuals still don't have access to quality care. And then also the aspect pertaining to mental health. We are mindful that we need to reflect that during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of us as healthcare clinicians were faced with some mental health problems, which was only brought upon in a form of awareness during the COVID-19 pandemic. And lastly, my contribution to this aspect would be that we have to go back and look at the infrastructural challenges within healthcare facilities, hospitals, and clinics. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Chairman.
Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Yes,
From my side, what I've been seeing as a problem and which has created many problems for our health services is lack of leadership at all levels. It's even worse at executive level. And this lack of leadership has impacted on our health facilities. The quality of health facilities is because there is no leadership. The fact that there are no resources, there are no finances, it is because of lack of leadership. It is because leaders who are there, some of them retire, and those who come behind them are not capacitated. And the reason why I'm saying is because we do have a dual system of healthcare in South Africa. And when you look at them, they don't function the same way. People do not get the quality of services from both of them in the same way. Those, when they're in the private sector, they are usually well cared for. There are finances, there are resources, and nobody complains about healthcare professionals because healthcare professionals in that situation are able to provide the services to their clients according to the way they know, the way they have been trained. But healthcare professionals in the public health services, because they care for so many, the numbers, we can't even count them, the resources are not there. There are no finances. The positions are there in the structure, but there's no money to appoint new staff members. And also touching on his on the staffing, we keep on producing health professionals from different professions, and then when they complete, they are not employed. Some go and do internship, go and do community service, but afterwards you see them doing on TV, doctors saying we need to be employed. The positions are there, but they can't be employed because there's no money. And all those things, and I'm talking from experience, are because of lack of leadership expertise. And this is also now impacting on our transformation, health transformation, how we are going to implement the NHI. How will we implement NHI if there are no resources, if the quality of our public health services has not improved? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Prof. Thanks, colleagues. So I would add four smaller things to the discussion. But before my addition, just to confirm, just to let you know that my purpose is primarily on violence and injury. So it's a part of the burden of disease in the country.
Yeah.
But I mention it because violence and injury focus on, of course, trauma to the body, but it's broader.
Mm.
And because of that, it's very multidisciplinary. It's not just a healthcare focus kind of matter.
Mm.
So the four things that I would add in would overlap with what the colleagues have said, but these are things that are especially important to violence and injury and their prevention. And the first of this is good quality information. We've got information on incidents when they occur. It's not always timeless. There is good longitudinal national information, but information, for example, on the extent of the problem is often quite fragmented. And then there's information on how some of these things come about. They can be quite complex. And so we don't always have good information around
Injuries.
suicide,
Yeah.
mental health. So there are needs for this. Some sectors are better because it's so multidisciplinary. The people involved come from many sectors, and some of them have made better strides. There's good information through road injury. There is some information, good information around parts of violence, but not, for example, all, because not all violence is declared, for example.
Mm.
The second issue is around prevention and having a focus on preventing some of the incidents and outbreaks that do occur. And some people may argue that some of these are really hard to determine. They are, but some matters are preventable. We knew, for example, that there was a start to a rat poisoning outbreak some months ago, a few years back. And we knew that because forensic pathology services were starting to detect this. So good information can be used towards prevention. And if this information is at the right points of the health system, they of course would be directed at care services, but they can be used also for prevention. My third point is around collaboration and partnerships. I think healthcare is part of a broader ecosystem. Even though the hospitals may have many thousands of people that come in as a result of violence, the people that are responsible for preventing that are people like SAPs, people that ensure that there are good facilities, recreational facilities, good educational facilities, etc. People not in the healthcare system. And so those partnerships are important. I know that government has taken an approach to this, but there needs to be, I suspect there needs to be more that has to be done for this. My last point is civic participation. So we have to have the presence of communities that are involved. You see a lot of that. There's a big stride in terms of mental health, for example, bringing affected parties in. But this applies to all kinds of aspects of the healthcare system.
All right. No.
Thanks, Prof.
Thank you very much, Prof. I think, Prof, you've touched it quite well, and I think we're also starting to move towards the solutions, which I think is good. But is there any input from the participants on how can we, or what are the key problems that are facing the healthcare system? I think I've got a hand there. You can take that hand.
I'll keep this one.
Yeah, I think also, thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, the questions also will tie from the previous panel also. Yeah, the issue of, we see the strides that were pulled, it was not long ago. The launch of Numerian tax, the other Steve Biko Academic, which is going to be a center for also for cancer research, I believe. So if also related works is also contributed to collaborate, and it's applicable, I think, to also Unisa. The issue of the also after the outcry, guys, of so the issue of equality, we were keen to find out with the issue of asbestos equality from people from the Val, also Val University, would they research also about the coal dust and other parts of the country, coalfield dust also, which were there's more or less causes of concern in regards with the rollout of the NHI, would other patients take precedent, or just research will be conducted just to match up the statistics? Also the issue of blood was more or less the DNA, so the blood passport also as the conscious issue, because now we see this citizenship has been a mattering factor in the past few weeks. So the issue of international blood donations, in blood transfusion, breeding blood transfusion. Yeah, just in a nutshell. Also, yeah.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think the most important thing that she's raising is the issue of inequality. You can just give her the lady one point name, just key. Yeah.
Which
Yeah. Yeah, we can give her the mic.
Thank you and good afternoon, colleagues. Mine is I'm just concerned because what is happening in our health system, the issue of what kind of measures are we putting in place. For example, a patient walks into a hospital and because the funds are not permitting or something like that, then they have to be chased away or not being assisted. I'm working in the library. What we are aimed for is that when a client comes in, we have to ensure that or strive to assist that person without the person leaving the library with no assistant. So I'm checking the same with the health. Where is our healthcare in that regard? Because you are not attending to what the patient is all about, but we are attending to the funds. I heard you explain that the funds are a problem. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot for the input. I think we'll just hold it there. Maybe I'll give you another chance as the time goes by. So I think we've raised the issues of problems. So I wanted to go back to my panel then to say, how can then we address these problems? I think Prof. Fanike started talking on the issues of civic participation, surveillance, as well as collaborations. But maybe just to go back to my panel again, how can we address these key problems that we have in health? Yeah.
I probably want to start off by saying that, look, healthcare needs are unlimited, right? That's just the nature. There are 60 million people in the country. Anywhere in the world, we would have seen during COVID, when there's the health crisis, there's competition for resources. In South Africa, we have two parallel systems that don't collaborate, So we saw also in the beginning of COVID, lots of activity in the private sector. And then our pandemic only started in October, November, when it came into the public sector. We saw global hoarding around vaccines, now again with monkeypox. So the point that I'm trying to make is healthcare needs are unlimited. Resources to respond to them are limited, right? Section 27 of our Constitution guarantees everybody the right to health care, including sexual and reproductive health. But not everybody has equal health status. Right? And a lot of your health status is determined, sadly, by income. 75% of working South Africans, do you know what they earn? It's the research that comes out of this university, the Bureau for Marketing Research, 6,000 Rand. 75% of working South Africans, not unemployed South Africans, working South Africans earn less than 6,000 Rand a month. And I think I've premised my response on those comments, right? But there are good things also. Over the last 20 years, the measures that we use globally to measure health improvement are maternal mortality, trending down, infant survival rates, increasing, right? Vaccination rates above 80%, not quite 90 where we need to be, above 80%. Right? Infectious diseases, right? Close to 90% of people who know their status for HIV. 20 years ago, millions of people were dying, right? Almost 70% of people who know their status are on treatment. TB deaths 5 years ago was 300,000 a year. Now they're at 54,000, right?
Okay.
The problems that we're facing is the evolution of health and how we respond to it. Our biggest challenges going forward are non-communicable diseases, diseases of lifestyle, you know, based on the commercial determinants, the things that we eat, right? But we still need basic healthcare. So in our country, where we spend 280 billion rand of public money on healthcare, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what should we be spending our money on, right? And if you look at the health status of the 80%, and also that data that I just shared, they're going down, but they're not going down everywhere.
Yep.
Right? If you look at our most recent census, our population now, a bigger portion of our population are born after 1994 than ever before. Many of them are still in poverty, right? But do we design a healthcare system that is focused on meeting the population health needs first, right? Our constitution also talks about progressive realization, right? But we don't have a path for progressive realization, because when we transferred into democracy in the 90s, we already had tertiary care.
Yeah.
Right now, we spend 65% of our national budget on hospitals. That's a largely inefficient. To the prof's point, we have no info to say how effective is Steve Biko.
Okay.
Right? So the point that I'm trying to make is we must let the data guide us. We must focus on the areas that have the biggest population impact and expand those services.
Yeah.
And then we can progressively improve everything else. Because almost 70% of hospital traffic at the moment is people with no referrals accessing primary care. So it's not in a very efficient way of using our resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. But I think I got your point that you must do planning based on data. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Zuba. I think my response will be very biased. For my master's, I did self-care practices amongst healthcare workers. So I think what I shared earlier on, based on the problems, I think we need to take care of the carers. As I mentioned earlier on, nurses or clinicians are experiencing burnout. And post-COVID-19, there was probably some that affected mentally. And our MEC of Health, she is very proactive, whereby the issue on health awareness has been promoted, and also the issue on caring with a smile. So my contribution is we really have to take care of the carers, because how can you give something that you do not have? So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so you made up for all the time that I used.
Yes. Can I think somebody was asking from that side that when the NHI, before I come to this one, is rolled out, what's going to happen? Will there be discrimination? So I just want to say that there will not be discrimination. The department will decide on the packages. How much will the package be per person? For an example, in our medical aid, we know that when you have medical aid, we have a certain amount of money for glasses, for your admission, your going to the pharmacy. So the same thing will happen. The government will decide on the packages, and everybody will get a package. Packages might not be that big at the beginning, but later on, I think they will improve. NHI is about universal health coverage. It's about covering everyone, so there will never be any discrimination. What I wanted to talk about is that in the previous years, in terms of leadership, Minister Motsoaledi, before he left, he was really, really frustrated with regard to the leadership in the whole country, including the hospitals. And he made an example that he went to, I'm not sure whether it was in the Eastern Cape, and then he was interviewing an HR person, HR for health, and the CEO. And the CEO said they are not able to employ because there are more than 100 applications for people who are applying to become cleaners. Now, she said she doesn't know of who to appoint. And immediately that told the minister that this person is not a healthcare professional. He's leading the hospital, but he knows nothing about health, and which was true. We implemented a program in partnership with the University of Pretoria Forte and Harvard. It was an executive leadership program. I think people knew about it, the Albertina Sisulu executive leadership program. And when that program started, we went to a district which the Eastern Cape didn't even want to hear about, the OR Tambo, because they were one of the districts that were piloting the NHI. And the department felt that these people are embarrassing us. When they are presenting at national, the Eastern Cape is always left behind. So what we did there, actually I did it purposely because I was leading that program at Forte. I spoke to those people after we interviewed them, and we're now selecting people who can join the program. Those very people who had no qualification. How do you become a CEO of a hospital? You are a teacher, or you are just a counselor who is taken there and you come and become a CEO. And then you hear incidents of there was no electricity, there was no gas, there was no vacuum. You know, if you are a health person, you know those things can never be, you can't run a hospital without them. Then we realized, so what we did then, we took those people, we put them in a postgraduate diploma, they were RPL'd at UP, and they were trained. And some of them, we put them in the master's degree program. They all were trained as executive leaders. I'm always saying, I'm so proud of what I saw, the results that I saw. OR Tambo became the best district that implemented the NHI at that time, rolling out the pilot.
Yeah.
So what I'm coming to is that we still need to continue training the executive leaders. We still need to train the CEOs of hospitals, because when you talk to the leaders in different provinces, they still complain about the same thing, because we didn't train as many people as we wanted to train. So the solution here is for us as researchers here at Unisa to go and approach. Unfortunately, our speaker, Professor Nicholas Cripps, is not here because he's the one who's responsible for funding NHI. Because I thought if he was here, we would have to approach him and say, Prof, we want to continue with this program because we still want to make sure that executive leaders are trained.
Yes.
Because when you teach them, they will tell you that we asked them about human resources. Why are you not managing people? They were telling us things that were shocking, that we're afraid of managing these people because they threaten you with witchcraft and they threaten to kill you. But now we capacitated them to take your position, be a leader, take your position, lead these people. If you need to discipline these people, but do it professionally according to policy, and you will see that nobody will threaten you about witchcraft. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Prof.
Thanks so much, Prof. I like the starting point that we've had serious health challenges in the past and serious successes as well. You think of how the country responded recently, but if you go further back to HIV, you can look even at the work around tobacco control. There've been major threats that we can learn a great deal from. And to add to the discussion, because I think they're all really important elements, I think from the points that I mentioned earlier, I like the starting point being with civic kind of spaces. The issue of health is a profoundly civic thing. And with the experience of HIV, you could see just how important organization was. And so not taking away from just how important it is to have decent, accessible, and professional health services that we have to push. But to return to the civic space and to bring the civic space on board around the issues that we currently still face. So it worked very well with COVID and so on. The other point that I want to make is I spoke in terms of the injury field and this issue about having a preventive focus, and I guess the equivalent is health promotive kind of stances and approaches. And this is something, we all, when we get sick, we go to a doctor and all of that. But many of us, normal people, you also do your best to try to not get sick. So there's both. You do both, and I think need to also put energy into
Yeah.
that promotive or preventive parts of the things that we do.
Yeah.
I think we have resources, and I think I did mention partnerships up front. And I know it's an obvious thing for many people, but the partnership building is something that shouldn't be underestimated. You know, people need to value the health resources,
Yep.
just as of course we value
Okay.
people's health. But the building of partnerships and how there is a it's an important collaboration
Okay.
that we need.
Yeah.
So those would be my things.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Prof.
much, Prof. Van Kerk. All right, I think I was going to give the participants, but maybe just to take a last question to my panelists, starting with Mr. Rensbeck. I think you have highlighted an important thing about promotion of access to health in South Africa. Maybe just 2 or 3 opportunities that you may consider to be available for us to be able to promote access. Or how can we really strengthen or increase the access to health in South Africa? Just 3 key things that you may.
Well, we've spent 15 years determining how to do that. Yeah? And I think what we should do now is actually just get behind it.
Yeah.
Right? So I think the proposals under the contracting units for primary care are a good place to start.
Yeah.
They include district hospitals in rural areas. So we think of primary healthcare in a much broader way. I think changing how we provide health also allows us to contract in, right? Sometimes our healthcare facilities are set up for care, but not for routine health. So contracting in GPs and other professionals are important. But I think the biggest opportunity we have is outreach services.
Okay.
Really investing in new kinds of health professionals, right, who are able to work at the community level, right, to increase health literacy, to act as a first port of call for health questions, and really just demystifying health. Because I think as poor people, we are encouraged not to get sick, right? When we get flu, we'll drink like 25 mid lemons before we even think of going to a doctor, right? Because we haven't been socialized into seeking care. So I think the biggest investment we can make in the contracting units for primary care is strengthening outreach and creating better linkages with the system, because we don't have a bad system.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tamai, you raised the issue of issues of staff shortages, and also that we need to promote self-care for the carers. Maybe the question to you will be, how can we as universities assist in actually improving the health services delivery in practice?
I think currently the universities are the ones that are receiving. So you guys should also start giving to the municipalities.
Yeah.
So the issues on research, remember there's already that gatekeeping whereby we do have our research committees within in Ekurhuleni, for example. So the outcomes of research is very important in the aspects on recommendations. Because what we find, we get proposals that have these nice topics, and some of them align with the problems we're having as a district. So we would like them, at the end of the day, the universities to assist us with whatever protocols they submitted to us. Those recommendations must come back and have an implementation, even if it can be in a form of a pilot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think important thing there is about service-based research, not just, Prof. Van Kerk, we are in the health studies, you are in the institute, and I think there's generally the university is looking at us, how do we then try and push this one? So my question to you is, what are the opportunities for collaboration towards improving healthcare service delivery?
Yeah, thanks, Prof. So we have a strong platform. We have thousands of students, all working on research and developing research that can go towards health promotion. We have research hubs within your department, also institutes such as ourselves, and we have then opportunities for students to do research that is aligned, it's aligned to the broader health niche of the university, but it's aligned to national needs. It can be aligned to local community needs and so on. It's a perfect space to grow a cadre of people that are interested in health and that have the benefit of good health information to promote health and to promote healthy and safe living.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Maybe from before you go to Prof. Sikwe, there was a question about what can we do to address these problems. Is there any input from the participants on how can we address these problems in health? Okay, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I think the suggestion is very much cutting across different fields beyond health, because health is a very multifaceted field. It speaks or it's very much connected to food, water, and energy. So what I'm going to suggest is something that cuts across. So and it's actually a plea or a suggestion that as we all advance our innovations or projects, we must deeply consider the profound socio-ecological and economic challenges that South Africa is currently facing, particularly the pressing issues of youth and graduate poverty and unemployment. And one way of doing that is, as we do our different innovations and projects, we must deliberately ensure that we identify skill sets in different value chains and supply chains, and as well as entrepreneurship opportunities that will actually lead into tangible job creation, and not merely in terms of potential, but in terms of concrete identifiable opportunities. And there's actually an urgent a need, or rather we must develop that agency for academia and research institutions to rise into this or to rise to this occasion, to actually partner with government and other stakeholders to contribute in order for them to contribute in a manner that is very emancipatory, that is transformative and relevant to a South African child. And because what we've seen so far in the research is that it's becoming or rather it is.
All right, you're gonna be summarizing, because I just want the solution. I've heard you about entrepreneurship. Yes.
I think the only concern around academia and research is that there's a growing concern that it risks becoming increasingly disconnected to communities or the context of South African issues, and it becomes now exclusive and unsustainable.
All right.
Thank you.
Well taken. So, Prof, Prof Mputi, just a brief comment. I have got a deadline for 2:00, so I don't want to go beyond time.
I promise, Prof, I'll be very short.
All right, thanks, Prof.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think, first of all, you have asked a question on what can be done to try and resolve these issues. I think that the first problem or the first resolution that I can bring forth is to avoid seeing the human body as conditions. Like, for an example, you'll find that today we are dealing with people who are suffering from diabetes mellitus only. And then tomorrow it's another condition, and the next day it's another condition. So you'll find that you have got somebody who has got 4 comorbid conditions. Your diabetes, your high blood pressure, your arthritis. This person has to come to the hospital like 3 or 4 times in 1 week. If maybe we can have a one-stop for all conditions in our hospitals and our PHC clinics, I think that can also assist in alleviating some of the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Prof is raising comprehensive nature of health services. All right, thank you very much. So, Prof Sikwe, the last parting shot is from you. You said that we have spoken about everything, and what is your view in terms of the opportunities that are available for income generation through the health studies stroke medicine niche area. Prof.
Thank you, Prof. I think you introduced us that there is a Department of Health Studies. There's also an institute.
Yes.
There's now a niche area. It's important that we should identify specific needs of the department, especially now. And we have two people here. They're giving us cues. What are the challenges? What are the needs? How does the department want us to participate? How should we assist? And once we have done that, like now for the NHI, there's lots of work that needs to be done. So we need to come together and to say, what is it, what skills do we have, and what do we think we can do in terms of making sure that we become an asset, we become a preferred provider for the department at this time. And we should also identify the funders. Who are the funders that are funding the department? We can go to the department itself. We can go to the funders. We have your health and welfare center. You have your USID. We have our WHO. It's also here. We have our Science Council, the SAMRC. And SAMRC, we can also contact them and request them to fund together with NRF. They do form that partnership. But we also need to do a presentation and prepare it and be ready to go around to these people that I'm talking about and to say, this is our capability as Unisa, and if you give us funding, this is what we will be able to do for you. Okay. Otherwise, nobody will know what we are capable of doing. And also, we should identify research topics that we can do together, maybe within the catalytic niche area or from a center of excellence or whatever. And in those, we should be able to appoint researchers. We must appoint our students, our postgraduate students and our undergraduate students to create a culture that will be recognized and that will be known even in the department. Then we know, people should know that if you go to UNISA, you go to the health people, this is what you will get. And the students will also be encouraged to come and study with us because the graduates, I think one of the participants spoke about entrepreneurship. Yes. Our graduates are unemployed. Graduates are unemployed. And the Department of Higher Education came up with the concept of that universities should be entrepreneurial. So we should also take that opportunity. It doesn't mean that if the students are studying health, they cannot run businesses in health. They can be entrepreneurial. So those are issues that we need. We need to have maybe one day just come together here in this room and say what are our needs, what are our expertise, and what areas do we think we can work on. For an example, in terms of rural health, in terms of NHI, in terms of the diseases that are there, because we all have expertise, and to say, let's research on these areas, or let's develop programs from the research that we have done, and let's get funding. We will definitely get funding once we show people what is it that we are capable of doing.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. So I think for health, we do need a full day to engage on issues. But due to time constraint, I think that is the time that we've had to discuss it. But I think thank you very much to my panel for also sticking up until, due to the lateness of the start, and also for yourself as participants. But I think the way forward is that we've taken note of your input in terms of problems and the proposed solutions. We are going to then have our own internal university engagement on how do we craft a way forward for the niche areas. So I think on that note, I want to thank my people that have asked questions. So I must just give them the tokens. You can come and get your stuff when you leave. All of them. I'm going to divide this pack across the 4 people that asked the question. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you very much. I think we are done with our session, and then we can go for lunch next door. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. The lunch is next door, ne? Yeah, thank you.